All right, and welcome back to Astrological's Racing. Today, guys, you're mounted inside my rig. Kind of a different view from what you guys are used to, but I'm taking advantage of this action camera and kind of giving you guys a unique angle over here. So anyways, let's go ahead and get straight into this. Assetto Corsa has one of the most complex systems in the entire sim racing industry. There's nothing like it. There's no other configurations that you can actually bring to the table like you do with Assetto Corsa. And then beginning to understand it, I feel like I could write a college notebook, a textbook on this stuff. There's a lot to it. There's a lot of different configurations that you could do. If I could sit down with Peter Bowes myself and actually sit and talk with him about all of the configurations and the files and the endless hours that he puts into, creating these dynamic weather systems, I think that would just be such a valuable conversation, because I would learn a lot. I know a lot about how to configure all of these different settings, but to get it firsthand in instructions, that would just be such an incredible opportunity. Anyways, let's get straight into it. We are in Content Manager, okay? First thing that you're going to want to go to is the Custom Shaders patch. Go to About and Updates and make sure you have the latest version of CSP downloaded. If you don't have it downloaded, or if you have no idea what the heck I'm talking about right now, go back to my ultimate guide to Assetto Corsa, mods, pure LCS. I spend about 15-20 minutes going through my personal settings and my personal experience on how to get the visuals that I think look the best. And bar none, I think that there are a few settings that I don't quite understand, but I think I have a pretty good understanding on how to really make the realism to something that I've just never experienced, because I've spent a lot of time in countless hours inside of these configuration files trying to really dial them in, and I feel like I'm about 99% there. Anyways, if you go and watch that tutorial, you'll have a better understanding about what I'm talking about here. Latest version of CSP downloaded. Okay, go do the weather effects. Make sure you have selected pure LCS, okay? And I'll talk about that here in a second on the loading screen. We're gonna go to drive, because those are the only two really that you wanna make sure that you have selected. We're gonna select go. So the reason why I chose pure LCS over pure gamma, these monitors, they're VA panels. From what I've noticed and what I've experienced, these monitors like LCS, linear color space, a lot better. They handle HDR extremely well. The colors look absolutely incredible once you can dial them in within the pure configuration settings. And pure LCS just seems a lot more flexible, I guess you could say. Three main configurations, and I guess you could say tools that we're going to be playing with is, number one, the Pure Planner. Pure Planner is going to be probably our main tool. That's going to be our hammer and nails here to really getting things done. And then Pure Configuration is more like the super technical stuff that we're going to talk about. And just to break this down pretty simply for you, Pure Planner, in this first section, this is going to be your time of day, this little slider right here. So this will be early morning, midday, and then golden hour. And as you can see, you can get golden hour dialed in rather quickly. Pretty cool stuff, right? So I am going to just explain very briefly. This is my preset right here, literally. I put it on dust, so you click this box right here. A little type of weather box will also pop up. So all of these are your different types of weather that you can select from. Really awesome stuff. You can go from heavy sleet to hurricane type weather, to heavy thunderstorms, to heavy rain, and then some cool little smoke effects right in here. So we're going to talk a little bit about these. All right, so as you can see, we made it to our destination here. This is where we're going to get the most visuals anyways that I'm going to show off to you guys. So what I like to do, I like to select, a decent time of day here where I can just see the sun. Let's make sure you guys can see that as well. So right here you can see the sun coming through just a bit, and that's exactly where we want it. Dust is probably one of my favorite ones to mess with, because you still get right here, as you can see, the sun shining through. Now if you play with fog, You don't get that sun really shining through anymore. Even with mist, it's still pretty hard to see because of the humidity itself. There's a lot of moisture in the air, so that's trapping the sun, the clouds, in behind that barrier, so you can't really see. Even with haze, there's still quite a bit of there's moisture in the air that kind of prevents the sun from actually coming through. So with dust, I'm actually able to see the sun coming through. I can get the volumetric like haze that you see on the track right here, but it's not really a haze, it's actually physical like dust and maybe even a little bit of humidity in the air. Another one that's really awesome to play with, as you can see, is sand. The only drawback is that you still can't see the sun, but it does create this very weird, intensive, yeah, look at this. This is really sweet looking. Almost like a zombie apocalypse, maybe a Dune-like atmosphere. So we're gonna play with dust. This is one of my favorites because it's kind of monkey in the middle, right? So this is where we can get a little bit complicated, okay? So we're gonna talk a little bit about like the actual files. So right here, if you look at this little box right here, this will kind of give you a little bit of, you know, understanding on how each of these little sections work. But the most one that I play with is right here. So humidity levels that we can play with. The reason why I play with the humidity is basically what that does is it allows the sun to cut through the actual moisture in the air. The more humidity that you have in the air, unfortunately, that traps the sun and actually even discolors it to more of like a tingy yellow. The less humidity that you have, the more sun that can be let through, the less water molecules that it gets trapped behind inside the atmosphere, so you get more lighting that way. So I mean, if you keep it around 38-40%, I think that's a pretty good rule of thumb. Mist is also one that if you have too much, again, it's going to turn into that foggy atmosphere that we have. And if you have that during midday, that can also create a pretty cool vibe, right? But I like to keep mist way down, maybe just a little bit. So as you can see, if you just dial that in just a touch, you will lose the sun. That's the drawback. So we don't want to lose the sun. Temperature of the air, that doesn't have like a huge effect on everything. But if you wanted to heat up the track, what that could also do is correspond with this as well. So you can change the temperature of the road, heat up the track, and that's essentially it. If you can actually see down here, now you can't see my tire temperatures, but I have gauges right in front of me right here. And the tires themselves are actually heating up. It shows you the tire temperature. And as I increase that, it will also increase the tire temperature as well. Yeah, and it's slightly increasing. So that also is very interesting, really interesting to play with. So you could get more grip, you can make it more optimal, things of that nature. It's actually pretty cool. One thing that I really like to play with is the actual wind speed. So look at that. That creates a really awesome and unique kind of feel. It creates another layer of like, oh shoot, this is actually right in front of me almost. Like I could almost reach out and grab this. It's so awesome. All right, so, and then you could also have this little slider right here. You can have a variable from 4.4 to 55.7, so you can actually drop it and increase it. And you can also change the direction of everything. So if you could also, you know, create like this cyclone effect, so it's not just all blowing in one direction, which is kind of helpful to know. So you can create just some more dynamic, so it's not so stagnant or going in one direction only. One other thing that we want to go into, you could also do like transitions. Like you could do auto transitions. You could change this from, you know, completely in the morning to, you know, all the way over here. You can actually define the transitions between currently selected to the upcoming slot. So let's just say you wanted dust to, you know, a different weather effect. You could do something to the nature of, you know, something completely different right over here. So let's just say you wanted something from this time slot to this time slot. You wanted it from here, and then it'll stay like this for the rest of the day. This is how you create a really unique atmosphere, at least with dust, and then we'll slightly go into some of these other ones as well. But it's rather simple. It's actually rather simple. Now, one really important thing that I wanted to talk about was the pure configuration. So this is how you actually and physically change the shape, the layering, and, you know, how you see the fog and the haziness of the track itself. So one thing to note here, you go to shaders, go to ground fog, and feel free you could totally copy these, but this is what it looks like default, right? Not interesting, not exciting, like at all. And this is probably one of the most important parts. So let's go ahead and change this up to 4. What that's going to do is give you a little bit more depth and, you know, just deeper quality, I guess you could say. Render distance, we want that to be probably, you know, I think I was right around 4. Right around there. Just because I want that render distance to not be too far, but, you know, just far enough to where I can actually see the depth. Now, something to note here, the size was rather important. Now you can make this much larger, that goes straight into the sky, or further down onto the ground itself. So just depending on where you want that, you can make that pretty sweet looking as well. So the scale is also something. So the lower you are, the more blotchy it's going to look, and then the more you increase this slider right here, that's actually going to give it a lot more detail. So I like to keep that around 458. This is the actual structure itself. If it's too structured, it'll look like it's super separated. But look how detailed you can make this fog. You don't want it to be too detailed, you know what I mean? You don't want it to look, you know, cartoonish. You make it too detailed, it may look just, it's you know what I'm saying? If it's too sharp, it doesn't look natural. So you want that feathering with the fog. Fog is never a perfect like O-ring, like how you can blow like an O-ring with smoke. There is no such thing. So you want this to be as natural as possible. You want this to be feathered out quite a bit. And then this is the actual gain itself. So you want this gain quite a bit. I like this pretty thick. So I keep this, and I want that thickness of the fog there rather large. So fade out just means, you know, if it's further away, that means it's going to be increase this slider, it's going to be further away, and then if you could bring it this way, it'll be closer to you. So I like to keep it rather close. Extra effects here. So this is the last portion that we're going to talk about here. Extra effects means turbulences. So when we're talking about turbulences, think of it this way. So when you're driving through fog, if I were to have opponents in front of me and they were whizzing by me through on the track, what that would mean is it would literally create like this wind tunnel around the volumetric fog and create like this cyclone as they're pushing through it. Crazy to think about. I keep this unchecked because it's intensive, it's heavy, it's very, very stressful on my computer. So I keep this unchecked for those reasons, because it's intensive. The turbulence is freaking awesome. If you have a 4080, a 4090, or if you're just running a single screen, I would highly encourage you to check this out. Or if you want to give it a shot, be my guest. You know, check this. It's actually pretty sweet. So when you drive through it, if other opponents were to drive through this, what it would mean is it creates like this cyclone behind them. So that's it for ground fog. Let's get into the sun blinding. So this is pretty important stuff to talk about. What this means, it's a shader that analyzes the sun's visibility within the camera. And a lot of these guys, this is to simulate the actual blinding itself. So the lesser it is, the more blinding it is. I did not know that. So that is something I just realized here in real time. I didn't realize he had a triples option for this, to be honest with you. That's pretty awesome. Now, getting into the lightning itself, that is going to be a whole separate video, but I really just wanted to, you know, go over this with you guys really quick, but visually this is what you want. Now, some would argue, yeah, that's probably pretty red looking, right? That is a pretty deep saturation. But what you could do, you could actually just change the time of day just a little bit here, because during that time it is rather red. Another thing that you could do is play around with your saturation, right? So what we could do, like I literally just desaturated the entire picture with the sunlight. So right here, peer configuration, go to light, and you can change the light saturation right here. And you could literally crash it from here. So just be very careful with this slider here. You could make it blood red and then all the way to ice white, you know. So I think a happy medium for a lot of guys would be under 1. or even like right on one. I think I had it on 1.1, and 1.1 doesn't look bad, right? I think 1.1 we could probably get away with, but if you wanted less saturation of the sun, it really just depends on a person's eyes. Totally depends on you. Sun level. Look at that, dude. So I could literally start a forest fire right in front of our faces here. Everything is on fire currently. It looks like that is crazy. So just know that when you're playing with these settings, they're very sensitive, and you know, this is all going to be based on your liking. So excuse me. This is your ambient level. So these are also really good to play with, especially if you're recording at night. This is also something to, you know, take note of. If you are recording at nighttime, you want to make sure that, you know, a good portion of your rig is lit up, and if it's not, then, you know, you can actually increase it within this area as well. So I think that's pretty important to note. Scrolling down here, this is just your distant ambient level. So like way off into the mountains, this would have an effect, right? Let's gonna make this a little smaller so I can scroll down. I have my DDU right in the face of me. So reflections level. So if you have reflections like we do right here inside the car, we can actually increase and decrease those. I like to keep it rather turned up, just because what that does is it creates this extra level of, like, you can see what's lit up and it actually has a physical reflection inside the vehicle or even outside of the vehicle, and pertaining to water, puddles, things of that nature. So that's pretty much gonna conclude today's video. Save. That's it, man. Again, if you guys have been enjoying these videos, if you got any value from them, please leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe. I really appreciate you guys with these videos. I know that they seem long, they may seem a little complicated, but rest assured, hopefully this brings you a little bit better understanding on how this weather system works, because I know it's complicated and there's a lot to it, but you know, even with Peterbo's instructions here, this pure planer is going to be your best friend. And then this section right here, if you guys just read up on it, you guys can also get a really good understanding on how to, you know, play with these settings even further. You know, this is awesome stuff. One other thing that I really didn't even get into was also the rain, but we're going to save that for another video, because these are long sections to try and understand. I know we only did a couple effects here, but next section that we're going to get into is rain effects and everything like that of that nature. So if you guys like this video, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the track.